The editor of Britain's Guardian newspaper is staying defiant, flat out denying his paper was aiding terrorists by publishing revelations on the scale of global surveillance. He was being grilled by a parliamentary committee which questioned whether the paper is encouraging terrorism. To RT's Sarah Firth now, who's covering the hearing for us in London. Sarah, it wasn't easy, but Rusbridger somehow managed to stay calm and cool through certain parts of that hearing, didn't he?
Well, what a hearing it was. It was lively. At times it got quite heavy-handed, I think it's fair to say. As you said, the editor of the Guardian newspaper managing to answer all those questions. But some of the questions, I think, will have raised some eyebrows, certainly. We heard at one point an MP ask Alan Rusbridger, "Do you love your country?" Now, that wasn't the only question that is going to be raising eyebrows. We also heard one MP seemingly compare some of the Guardian disclosures of the Edward Snowden files to the leaking of secrets to the Nazis. Let's take a listen to that.
Mr. Ellis, is that a question? If you'd known about the Enigma code during World War II, would you have transmitted that information to the Nazis?
Now, the questions session all the more interesting if you compare it to what took place at the beginning of last month. And there we saw the heads of the UK intelligence agencies, MI5, MI6, GCHQ, and they'd come before another parliamentary committee. And there, the questioning much calmer, much more coordinated. And certainly this is something that the editor of The Guardian also made note of in his questioning today. Let's take a listen to that.
The catastrophic leak that did happen was dealt with by the ISC with the following exchange. Chairman, can we assume you are having discussions with your American colleagues about the hundreds of thousands of people who appear to have access to your information? Head of MI5, all three of us are involved in those discussions, Chairman. Chair, thank you very much.
Now, coming towards the end of that session, we heard Alan Rusbridger asked if The Guardian would continue to publish revelations, and he said that they wouldn't be intimidated, but they wouldn't behave recklessly. And that was quite important, I think, in today's session. He really made note of the level of scrutiny that the journalists involved in publishing these stories undertook, and saying that they have behaved responsibly and have sparked this debate now about the scope of the surveillance that intelligence agencies in this country have undertaken. So certainly I think this debate not going away anytime soon.
Sarah, thanks very much indeed for that. Sarah Firth live from our London studio. Writer, journalist and blogger Glyn Moody says that he believes this hearing is all show and no substance.
It's theatre because it's actually for internal consumption. It's really for the United Kingdom. And David Cameron is trying to demonstrate that he's the strong man, that he's tough on terrorism, that he's not going to let journalists, tell him what to do. And therefore, he's coming out with these statements which for the rest of the world thinks pretty crazy, because everyone is saying, from President Obama downwards, that we should have this debate about what are the limits of surveillance and what kind of oversight should we have. And it's really only David Cameron and the UK government that's saying that we shouldn't do that.
Well, let's look at how much pressure The Guardian has faced these last months. The paper began publishing revelations of surveillance this summer. Now, soon after, police came knocking on the door, demanding it hand over all the information it had. Now, that didn't work, so the paper was threatened with legal action, reportedly by figures close to David Cameron. The paper refused to yield in August. The partner of a Guardian columnist was detained under anti-terrorist laws, allegedly for carrying more incriminating data. And later that month, the paper was forced to destroy hard drives containing sensitive information. All that, too, failed to stop more revelations. And here we are now with the editor of The Guardian being grilled by MPs about aiding terrorists.